But our brains are wired for connection. We often think about brain health in terms of nutrition, exercise, sleep, supplements, and reducing stress. And yes, all of those matter. But one of the most overlooked pillars of brain health may actually be our relationships. Research has shown that meaningful social connection helps support memory, cognitive function, emotional resilience, and even longevity. Welcome to RenewHer, a podcast for women over 50 ready to reignite their energy and explore what's next. I'm Janelle Lemley, brain fitness coach. Here, you'll hear real stories from women taking on new challenges after 50, along with brain health tips to boost focus, energy, and the mindset to move forward with confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to RenewHer. Today, we're talking about something that is deeply human, something that nourishes us emotionally, mentally, physically, and neurologically: connection. Recently, I spent time with friends, one evening with high school friends and another with college friends. There's just something about sitting around a table with people who know your history, friends you can laugh with, friends who have walked through life with you for decades. And afterward, I noticed something. I felt lighter, more energized, more grounded, uplifted. Not because anything extraordinary happened. We simply talked, laughed, shared stories, and checked in on each other. But what I realized again is that connection is powerful medicine for the brain. And science confirms what many of us have felt intuitively all along. Good relationships don't just make life more enjoyable, they actually help protect our brains. For over 80 years, researchers in the Harvard study of adult development have tracked people's lives to better understand what contributes to long-term health and happiness. And after decades of research, one of the clearest findings was this: health and happiness are not primarily about wealth, achievement, fame, or working harder. They're about good relationships. I find that interesting, especially in a culture that tells us success comes from productivity and accomplishment. But our brains are wired for connection. We often think about brain health in terms of nutrition, exercise, sleep, supplements, and reducing stress. And yes, all of those matter. But one of the most overlooked pillars of brain health may actually be our relationships. Research has shown that meaningful social connection helps support memory, cognitive function, emotional resilience, and even longevity. And it's not necessarily about having a huge social circle. It's about feeling genuinely connected, feeling seen, safe, supported, valued, having someone you can call when life falls apart, someone who celebrates you when life goes well, someone who says, "I understand." That matters to the brain more than we realize. I've been fortunate to have long-lasting friendships in my life. I have a core group of high school friends, which means we've been connected for about 50 years now, and a core group of college friends for close to 45 years, which honestly sounds impossible when I say it out loud. We've walked through divorces, deaths, career changes, marriages, raising children, and becoming grandparents. We've seen each other at our best and at our worst. And there's something deeply regulating to the nervous system about being with people where you don't have to perform. You can simply be yourself. I think for years I recognized the emotional benefit of those friendships. I could feel it, but I didn't really fully appreciate the biological and neurological impact they were having on my brain health. Now we know that social connection affects the brain in profound ways. When you spend time with people you trust and care about, your brain releases chemicals like oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, chemicals associated with bonding, pleasure, calm, and emotional well-being. Connection also helps lower cortisol, our stress hormone, and chronic stress is incredibly hard on the brain. Long-term elevated cortisol has been associated with memory problems, inflammation, sleep disruption, anxiety, and even shrinkage in areas of the brain related to learning and memory. So when we say relationships are good for your health, this isn't just emotional or philosophical, this is neuroscience. Even conversations themselves stimulate the brain. Think about what your brain is doing during meaningful social interaction. You're listening, interpreting emotion, recalling memories, responding, empathizing, laughing, and processing facial expressions and tone. Social engagement activates multiple regions of the brain simultaneously. It's almost like a workout for the brain. And studies have shown that people with strong social ties are less likely to experience cognitive decline and dementia than those who are socially isolated. Now, on the flip side, loneliness can have a very real impact on the brain and body. And loneliness is becoming increasingly common, which is interesting because technically, we're more connected than ever through phones, texting, social media, and technology. Yet many people feel deeply alone because digital connection is not always the same as emotional connection. You can be surrounded by people and still feel isolated. Loneliness increases stress hormones and inflammation in the body. It can negatively impact sleep, immune function, mood, and cognition. Some researchers have even compared the health impact of chronic loneliness to smoking or obesity. That's how significant it can be. And I think this becomes especially important in midlife and as we age, because even women who appear very connected on the outside can quietly become more isolated during this season of life. Children grow up and leave home, careers become more consuming, some friendships drift, parents age and require care, retirement changes routines, divorce happens, loss happens, and suddenly, without even realizing it, life can become smaller. I think many women over 50 are carrying more than anyone realizes emotionally, mentally, and physically. And because they're competent and capable, people assume they're fine. But being strong and being connected are not the same thing. And one thing I've noticed is that many high-achieving women are excellent at showing up for everyone else while neglecting their own need for connection. We convince ourselves we're too busy, too tired, that we'll reconnect later, but our brains and nervous systems still need closeness, laughter, support, and belonging. One thing I've observed over the years, and maybe you have too, is how often, particularly in elderly couples who have been together for decades, after one spouse dies, the other spouse declines shortly afterward, sometimes surprisingly quickly. There's actually a name for this phenomenon. Researchers often refer to it as the widowhood effect. And while there are many factors involved, loss of connection plays a significant role. And I think part of what makes this so profound is that after 40, 50, or 60 years together, those lives become deeply intertwined. Their routines are shared, their conversations are shared, their habits are shared, even their sense of identity can become connected. So when the person is suddenly gone, it's not just emotional grief. The surviving spouse can experience profound loneliness, disorientation, and nervous system disruption. The person they talked with over morning coffee is gone. The person they ate dinner with is gone. The companionship, the touch, the routines, the shared memories, the sense of purpose and belonging, all suddenly altered. The silence in the home feels different. Meals feel different. Daily life feels different. And for elderly individuals especially, rebuilding social connection after that kind of loss can be incredibly difficult. That's one reason why community, family involvement, social engagement, and even things like group activities or companion animals can become so important later in life. And that level of loneliness and grief can profoundly impact physical health, emotional well-being, and brain health. Studies have shown increased risks of depression, cognitive decline, heart disease, weakened immunity, and even mortality following the loss of a spouse. It's heartbreaking. And it reminds us how deeply interconnected our brains are with relationships. Humans were never designed to do life entirely alone, which is why community matters, friendship matters, family matters, purpose matters, feeling needed matters. And I also want to mention something else that often gets overlooked in conversations about connection: animals. Because connection doesn't only come from people. Our pets can profoundly impact our emotional and neurological well-being too. If you have a pet, you probably already know this intuitively. You walk through the door after a difficult day, and there they are, happy to see you like you're the greatest person in the world. There's comfort in that. There's regulation in that. I never had pets growing up, but when I married my late husband, I adopted his dog, and honestly, I haven't been without one since. And now our dog greets me at the door, wagging her tail so hard, her entire body moves. And our cat, when he was alive, acted more like a dog and was incredibly affectionate and calming. These relationships matter more than we sometimes realize. Research has shown that interacting with animals can reduce cortisol levels and increase serotonin and oxytocin. Simply petting a dog or cat can lower blood pressure and heart rate. Pets can decrease anxiety, reduce feelings of loneliness, and even support people struggling with depression, PTSD, and dementia. That's one reason therapy dogs are increasingly being brought into hospitals, assisted living facilities, and memory care centers. They bring comfort, calm, joy, connection. And pets also create human connection. Have you noticed that? Take a dog for a walk and suddenly strangers talk to you. People smile, they stop, they ask questions. Sometimes the dog becomes the bridge to human interaction. I remember when my husband and I were first married and I lived in an apartment years ago, I knew everyone by their dog's name more than their actual name. Oh, that's Bailey's mom. And honestly, even those small moments of interaction matter. A smile matters. Feeling acknowledged matters. Feeling connected matters. And if your pet is active and gets you moving, that's an added brain health benefit because physical exercise is one of the best things we can do for cognitive health. So the benefits compound. Now, I also want to touch briefly on something important. Not all relationships are healthy because when we talk about connection being good for the brain, we're talking about supportive, emotionally safe, nourishing relationships. Toxic relationships create chronic stress. They dysregulate the nervous system. They increase anxiety and emotional exhaustion. And there's actually neuroscience behind why certain relationships feel calming while others feel draining. Our brains are constantly scanning for safety. Think about how different you feel sitting across from someone who truly listens to you versus being around someone who is critical, dismissive, unpredictable, or emotionally exhausting. One leaves you feeling calm and grounded. The other leaves you tense, anxious, or depleted. That's because relationships affect the nervous system in real time. Supportive relationships can help regulate stress responses, lower cortisol, calm the nervous system, and create emotional stability. And over time, that matters tremendously for brain health because a brain that feels safe functions better. We think more clearly, we sleep better, we regulate emotions better. We become more resilient during stress. Our brains were never designed to live in a constant state of emotional threat or disconnection. So this isn't about surrounding yourself with more people. It's about surrounding yourself with the right people. The people who bring peace instead of chaos. The people who energize you rather than drain you. The people who see you, encourage you, and allow you to be authentic. And if you're listening today and realizing you've become more isolated lately, I just want to gently encourage you to lean back into connection. Not perfectly, not all at once, but intentionally. Reach out to someone, text a friend, join the book club, volunteer, invite someone to coffee, call the person you've been thinking about. Sometimes we assume people are too busy or that too much time has passed, but often they're craving connection too. Good relationships boost the brain, and a healthy brain helps us nurture better relationships. It truly goes both ways. And maybe one of the greatest misconceptions about connection is that it's optional once life gets busy. But connection isn't extra, It's foundational to emotional health, to resilience, to longevity, and to brain health. We were designed to need each other. So today, I want to leave you with these questions. Who helps you feel more like yourself when you're with them? And are you making enough room for those relationships in your life? Because connection protects, connection heals, connection strengthens. And maybe now more than ever, we need each other. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today on RenewHer. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, a parent, a spouse, or someone who may need a reminder that they matter and that connection matters too. Until next time, take care of your brain, take care of your relationships, and keep renewing yourself from the inside out. Thank you for joining me for this episode of RenewHer. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't let it fade. Take even a small step toward what's next. If you found value in what you heard, please subscribe, leave a review, or share this podcast with a woman who's ready to take her next bold step. Together, we're building a community of strong, resilient women, navigating what's next with courage and purpose. Until next time, stay energized and keep embracing what's possible.